Very excited to be spending the next 45 minutes or so on this panel on turning AI's potential into reality and strategies for corporate transformation. I will start with the least interesting part first, which is a quick intro on myself, and then we're going to get to the much more interesting part, which is these wonderful three people that are joining me up here. Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm a partner with McKinsey based out of the Bay Area. In part, owing to the location, I spend all my time in the AI space and technology-driven growth these days, and I get to work with both software companies that are building AI and some of the non-digital native players that are using and employing AI. And I'm joined up here by these three wonderful people here. I'll start over here, May. May Yap, she's the Senior Vice President and Global Chief Digital and Information Officer at Jabil, so in the electronics manufacturing space, and previously held a long career at IBM, I believe 12 years, and other places including PwC and Oracle. I'll go next to Andrei Papancea. He is the co-founder and CEO of NLX, a conversational AI platform. And he was inspired to found and run this today based on his experience of building a conversational AI platform at Amex, American Express previously. And then we also have Dimitris Bountolos. He is the Chief Innovation and Information Officer at Ferrovial, so in the infrastructure space, and previously was a repeat founder and also has multiple corporate career stations across LATAM Airlines and Iberia and others. So very excited to be here with all of you, and we look forward to this panel together. Why are we talking about this topic to begin with? There's an interesting juxtaposition of, I would say, two sides of facts. One, we know that the potential with AI is enormous. In fact, Amar briefly quoted it in the keynote just prior to this as well. The economic potential is really significant, but at the same time, we also know that we haven't quite been able to get to realizing this impact at scale. When we say the potential is enormous, both across sort of analytical AI, generative AI, agentic AI more recently, we're looking at up to around about $4.4 trillion in economic potential out there. Just to give you a sense of the order of magnitude that we're talking about, this is around about the size of Japan's GDP. We also know that 92% of companies are looking to continue to increase their investments in AI over the next 3 years. So there's real momentum. And of course, since AI has come onto the scene, mass market scene, I should say, 2.5-ish years ago, organizations, including all of you, have already been going and pursuing this sort of with a lot of passion. On the other side of the fact base, however, we also do know that only 1% of organizations today say that their AI investments have reached maturity, which means that their AI, the AI deployments, et cetera, are well integrated into workflows. We know that only 11% of AI use cases that get conceptualized and talked about end up in production at scale in organizations. And so we're going to spend this time here on this panel exploring a little bit about where that disconnect is coming from and potential, strategies for success. And so with this, I'm going to kick off sort of a few questions that I have prepared for these three panelists up here. And then, of course, we'll also open it up to all of you to ask questions. So very much invite you all to start thinking about what's on your minds as it regards this topic. Maybe I'll start with you first. Let's talk a little bit about setting up an AI transformation for success. One thing that we often see, for instance, is it actually makes sense to double down on a domain rather than just go after individual shiny use cases, if you will. What's your sense in your organization, or more broadly, what's the domain that you feel is most ripe or will have the most impact, if you will, for sort of AI disruption, and maybe what's one use case that you're excited about?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I think Hannah did a really good introduction about where I come from, right? So Jabil is, well, I can't say that, but I'm going to say it, is the best kept secret. It is one of the largest manufacturing company based in America, right? So in fact, we are the second largest in the whole world in terms of doing manufacturing solutions. right? So a snapshot on the context as to why I'm saying that, right? So we operate out from 25 over country, 100 over manufacturing site. I have more than 140,000 people. So imagine that, right? So the context of the manufacturing solution provider that we are claiming to be, and our mission say that we need to be the best technologically advanced manufacturing company. So when Hannah actually asked me that question, so where would AI actually make sense? Am I actually chasing after all the small little T's, or am I going after the big transformation? So in fact, we are actually doing both, right? We are actually doing both. So we didn't start the AI journey like in November 2022. I think somebody was talking about that. So in fact, we started it for a long time, right? For the longest time since I joined the company about 10 years ago. So we were already pursuing that mission because we know that that's something that is actually going to be meaningful. Of course, we don't have ChatGPT at that time. So we started with a very clear mindset on, what are the AI solutions that is able to actually help me reduce costs and help solve the business problem that the operation and manufacturing shop floors are facing. So we have done a lot of good use cases, but if I actually double click on the thing that really actually help us shape the right domain that we need to be focusing on is when I set up the data and AI council for the company. That's when we actually get all the key leaders from every function, ranging from BU, finance, operation, to sit down and say, hey guys, AI as a shared responsibility, where do we collectively want to invest and go work on? So there are 3 areas that we work on. So one is actually on computer vision. We know that we are spending a lot of time and money, and we need to actually fix the cost of quality. So computer vision is one pillar that we focus on. Then the second pillar is really talking about using data, right? The advanced data analytics, how do you use data to actually let data speak and let data act for us? So that's the other slogan that we were actually chasing after. And then the third part of it is collectively we all decided that yes, Gen AI, agentic AI is the right focus for us. So those are the 3 domains that we are focusing on.
Thank you, May. And you already picked up one topic that, of course, everybody is talking about now, agentic AI. I think lots of advancements being made in the AI space overall, whether that's explainability, reasoning, multimodality, et cetera. But I think most interest is sort of in the agentic AI space. Maybe, Andrei, from your perspective, what's an agentic AI use case that you're particularly excited about, and how do you think about the evolution of that?
Well, one element, can you hear me okay, or I'm not sure? Yeah, there you go. One element of it is how do you really define agentic AI? Because I think there's a lot of blurry definitions of what it is and what it isn't. In its true form or definition, it's when you can basically offload tasks to the AI and it does them for you, just like a human might. And it might not be as synchronous as hey, I'm sending you something and 2 seconds later I get it back. It might take half an hour, 2 days, whatever, but then you get it back. Quite a few compelling use cases there. I think anything that you solve for, going back to what you were saying, May, it has to be driven by a solution. So just coming up with some use cases, I can probably verbalize some, but ultimately each of you here in the audience will find a different one. One that we were talking about a little bit earlier today had to do with, let's say, my company, we work with very large brands and drive all forms of automation through conversation, right? So whether it's chat, voice, whatever, whether you're using it for contact center or back office, you can build it using our platform. And there's work from a pre-sale standpoint of, let's say, we're about to talk to, say, McDonald's. You might want a tailored deck. You might want some tailored demo, maybe some executive brief on the latest, let's say, investment, investor relations, sort of papers and whatever else that might contribute towards a productive and contextual conversation with the customer. Now, you could typically ping this to an analyst or someone that kind of can piece together these sort of pieces of information, but alternatively, you could build a system without a lot of effort that can compile that for you by just saying, hey, I need this type of package for McDonald's, right? You can pass that all the way to like pure enterprise use cases for all kinds of tasks. What constitutes a good use case and what doesn't ultimately boils down to your tolerance for imperfection as an organization. Because ultimately, for a very, very large brand, so let's say United Airlines is one of our customers, their tolerance for imperfection, customer facing, when powering core operations, right? Let's say someone calls in or chats and they need assistance right away, is very, very low. Because if they provide the incorrect information or sort of provide any sort of inaccurate data back to the customer, that can have detrimental impact, not just to their bottom line, but also to their brand. And I guess everything boils down to the bottom line. But ultimately, work backwards from the problem. And the beauty of where we're at today is that the possibilities are so vast. But it's so important that you work backwards from the problem, because so many times like we talk to customers and their mandate for why they're pursuing like quote unquote AI is because the board said so or there's market pressure. And while those are certainly facts, ask the right questions before you get started on that journey.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. We're talking a little bit about the technology. I would also love to talk a little bit about the human angle, if you will, right? The tech, of course, is not trivial, but as we heard in previous conversations as well, right, it's very much a change management question as well. Dimitris, I'm wondering from your perspective, how do you think about sort of upskilling and capability building within your teams to make sure that they can use AI effectively and with confidence?
I think this is one of the probably Achilles heels and major constraint that we have seen across the last 3 years. No? So to decouple the speed and the pace of the technology and how humans are able to absorb in the different roles, how to take the advantage. It's not it's a very complex topic. In our reality, just to give you as a highlight what we are doing. No? So we are participating in the overall value chain of the infrastructure development. Design, finance, we are putting skin in the game, money in the game, our own money, build and operate major piece of infrastructure. We have a lot of employees connected with the operations. We have a very physical nature and legacy. They are not connected every day with the possibility of how technology is able. They are users. We are influencing what they are doing through a cascade of decisions that the EARN has been trying to push the technology along the years. No? When we realized years ago that this type of technology was able to be consumed at different layers of complexity. Obviously, my team has to be very, very savvy in order to anticipate trends, in order to identify all the trade-off, but to become consciously an AI-first company, or to progressively adopt that augmented mindset required to embrace and engage with the frontliners and with the back office, with the technical teams, and with those that have been very far away from the technology. I use the analogy with my team and with the entire company about nobody has learned how to ride a bike reading a book. And everybody has been trying, has been pursuing that with the support of someone, with the excitement of being self-sufficient. We are seeing for the first time in decades sparkling eyes in frontline employees because they feel much more empowered about what they were dreaming without knowing about technology. So we are doing is dosify as much as possible what we are trying to scale. So we were the world's first company in our domain scaling to the entire staff Copilot as a Trojan horse in order to inoculate that seed, that appetite for exploring, that intention to bring prototype to reality in a matter of minutes, to improve the quality of the requirements, to improve the ambition, and that has created quite interesting echo chamber. We have increased expectation, we have evolved and improved the quality of the requirements, and also we have started to dream about what we can do in the back office, in the corporate areas, and in the functional side. No? The fear or the dilemma about, wow, this technology could replace my role. I need to upskill what I represent because otherwise this is going to be a threat. We have seen much more that from the anxiety of many of the employees in the back office trying to really deliver the expectation of the front line employees or the field support. For those connected to the business, what we have seen is an excitement of start to be self-sufficient in activities that were really bureaucratic. They were consuming their time. They were not letting them to dedicate time to keep improving their skills and so on. No? So once they saw, for example, the first massive example that we deployed was the orchestration of our lane closure. We are closing on average 1,000 highways lanes per year. That is taking 1 week, 2 weeks of preparation, a lot of reports and so on. We created around 12 agents that were replicating particular roles, particular domain-specific knowledge, and we were able to reduce from 2 weeks to 5 minutes the creation of the report. For them, it was like an epiphany to realize that we were able to liberate that time and put the emphasis in improve the process, reimagine the process, motivate them to be much more engaged in the necessity to upskill, socializing, riding those bikes, demystifying that this is a technical responsibility. I think it's an opportunity for everyone. No? And this is a journey. We are still learning, but it has been remarkable, the alignment and the commitment of all the company at the same time.
I think one thing.
Sorry, Hannah, if I can actually add on to what Dimitri is saying, right? So given the context of where we are and how big the organization is, in fact, when I actually kind of reflect through how do we actually do the education and awareness? So in fact, I was one of the first 5 companies in the whole world that signed a pre-GA enterprise agreement with Microsoft on Copilot. But we actually started way too early, right? Way too early that when I actually roll out the Copilot to people, people are like, hey, what do I really need this for, right? So that the timing itself needs to be very, very accurate. So we learn our hard lessons. So we bought a lot of license pre-GA, or pre-announcement from them. And people are like, nope, I don't really need this. Only a handful came back and say, hey, that's going to help me in terms of productivity. So I think our hard lesson learned is that, when we actually roll out the new technology, the new shiny objects, we need to be very, very cautious about what kind of problem are we trying to solve here, right? The literacy, the data literacy and the AI literacy becomes so important that we have to actually kind of scale back a little bit and say that, hey, let's start off with awareness, right? What is even awareness of data and AI and the definition of what this is? So I think that went on quite well. And in fact, I was just talking to my corporate comms person. We roll out the so-called, lunch and learn session to everybody. And we have oversubscription of people now wanting to learn from basic, again, what is AI? What are we doing? So I think people should be at the heart of everything that we're doing.
And I think that's one thing that I'm taking away, Dimitris, from your story as well, right? It's the sharing, it's also the role modeling, it's the, creating the awareness made to your point of what's actually happening, what's the value add, and thus sort of exciting people to be a part of the journey. One thing I wanted to sort of get back to, May, you mentioned you've been on the journey for 10 years, and, Dimitris, you have been you're building the journey almost for others. I'm wondering sort of, and we heard this in a previous conversation as well, right? We're not quite seeing the impact just yet. How do you all think about sort of impact measurement? Maybe we'll start with you first. How do you think about impact measurement in the context of AI, where maybe some of the more traditional metrics are not quite as suited, right? How have you pursued this?
I think I kind of look at it from a few ways, right? So the traditional matrix still come into picture for some of the use cases that we are doing, right? Because we are in a manufacturing context, right? Where we are rolling out new tools, new technology, new AI-enabled, processes. So the ultimate objective is that we want to solve a business problem. And our business problem to us actually comes down to, is it going to take down my manufacturing cost? Is it going to improve my efficiency? Right? Am I going to do things faster? So the traditional matrix for us, like OEE improvement, right? The number of people that I'm going to actually deploy, the number of people that I'm actually going to put into my quality inspection, the cost of quality inspection. So those are the hard matrix that we need to be able to measure when we roll out the solutions that we're talking about here.
Thank you. Maybe Andrei, question to you, and switching gears a little bit. We've been talking about some of the challenges, whether that's impact measurement or rolling it out to employees, making sure that there's adoption. What are some of the accelerators for AI? What are some of the areas that you're excited about that you think there's lots of opportunity that is creating momentum for us? How do you think about this forward momentum?
I mean, if we look at the state of the art and everything that's been happening for the last 2 to 3 years, even before that, a lot was possible. But nowadays, using the power of large language models, there is so much that you can automate. And if we just start with the contact center, because there's so much opportunity there, wherever there's a lot of people involved, right, and a lot of repetitive tasks, there's a good opportunity, right, for ROI. And if we take that in itself, there's so much that you can shave away from today, that a lot more than you could do before. For example, the semantic capability and understanding of LLMs far exceeds its predecessors of natural language processing. In a concrete sense, if before you would say, hey, cancel flight, or canceled flight, let's say you're over the phone and you're talking to Unite and you're conveying that, in a traditional NLP sense, that's like potato. It's going to look the same. It's going to look at the weights of the words, and that's going to look exactly the same. With LLMs, you can delineate between the first one is someone's intent to actually cancel their flight. The second one is likely their flight was canceled and then some other action needs to be taken. So if you go from that building block, now you can have a much better understanding of your customers, whoever they are, whether it's B2B, B2C, irrelevant. You can have a better understanding of what humans are trying to communicate to effectively execute in a self-service fashion. And if we're talking over voice, there's a lot of interesting ways of piecing together these technologies that don't just come in the pure form of, hey, you just throw stuff to the AI over the fence and you're done. For instance, one of the capabilities we put in place with our customers quite often is something that we call Voice Plus. It's a blend of using voice in synchronization with some sort of a digital asset or an IoT device. And the way that looks like, again, let's say you call up your favorite brand and say, hey, I'm trying to change my reservation. Instead of trying to force a use case that might be too complex for a voice-only interaction, think about situations where you might need to convey a confirmation number or a last name. Like my last name will never get picked up by any AI. Oftentimes it doesn't get picked up by humans sitting, 6 feet away from me. Papancea, right? Papancea. So effectively, instead of trying to fit that through a user interface that's too gnarly, you can engage. Let's say you can send a person to a website or a mobile app, but you don't have to drop the audio channel. So now the voice assistant can become contextually aware and guide people the way to task completion or to a point of escalation. There's so much opportunity today, but it's so important that you work backwards from the problem. Another very similar example that I think many of you here it will resonate with you, password reset. Without talking with many of you individually, I bet that's one of the top 5 call reasons or contact reasons that you have in your organizations. It's routine, it's relatively straightforward, but very complex to handle over a voice-only channel, as an example. Because you're not going to sit there and be like, oh, my new password is uppercase this, lowercase that, special character. That's impractical, insecure, yada, yada, yada. So if you work backwards from that problem, it's like, okay, clearly it's routine. It has a solution. You have pages where you can go and reset them for whatever reason people don't follow the instructions. Then if you work backwards from that, you can peel off and find different technological capabilities that can come in support of solving whatever that problem is.
Amazing, thank you. Dimitris, as you think about, your organization's AI transformation, we've heard obviously there's lots of positive momentum. Surely there must also have been some challenges, or you're familiar with other challenges. How do you think about what are, in your experience, the biggest challenges, and how have you worked to overcome those?
So I think beyond the human factor, that is always critical, and we're exploring how to unlock it. Data as a transversal asset that is able to accelerate it or diminish that value chain of interaction has been very critical for us. No? So we started the journey years ago, populating our data domain, trying to establish a solid governance, not defining very strict guardrails, but creating synergies across the multiple data lakes. We realize that when we are introducing a multimodal dimension in the opportunity, and for us, interacting in a physical world, we are capturing terabytes and terabytes on a daily basis of information. We are managing all the high-speed train in Spain. We are having drones flying, and each drone could represent 2 terabytes. We have been preparing a journey in order to unlock the power of data without acknowledging 3-4 years ago how important was to manage at the scale and structured data and non-conventional data sets. Right now we have, for example, 5 tunnel boring machine operating in Sydney, Toronto, Paris. Each one is generating 2-3 terabytes of information that we were not able to handle because we were so much obsessed in structuring the data in order to generate insight for the conventional type of question. But right now the question of the business unit are much more sophisticated. Could we correlate information that is captured by a drone, information that is historically recorded during the last 15 years, and make something visual in a couple of hours? We were not prepared at that moment in order to lay down a transversal foundational layer in order to guarantee, first of all, no duplication of data, proper computing of that data, and to trigger the trade-off between do we have enough data in order to be really, really accurate in the final business outcome, or do we need to start early on a synthetic data platform in order to complement? And that was what we identified. For many of our use cases, despite we are on a daily basis capturing 1 billion pictures of license plate, in order to cover all those edge use cases, we had to create our own synthetic platform in order to be compelling enough and be deterministic. Because it was really strange that we were able to augment up to 70, 80% many of the use cases, but that 20% was impossible to be achieved as a failure. Data has been, for us, and is still one of the pivotal elements, and is directly connected with the view of how we want to unlock the power of the agents. So I think our next frontier, or the next challenge, is how to inoculate the dispersed and non-registered knowledge that for decades all the employees have accomplished. We are having daily employees that are getting retired, that they have not registered in any system of record, they have not socialized the intelligence that is able to be applied in any of their interaction, no? And to create an inventory of agents that progressively will capture those nuances and will give a unique competitive advantage. It's a next frontier that we are trying to explore. No?
Amazing. Well, there's so much in there that I would love to dig more deeply into, but I also do want to open it up to the audience at some point. Maybe I'll close with one round of questions, same question to all of you. What's one piece of advice that you would share with the rest of the room from your own experience of basically moving beyond just the AI hype cycle and really turning this into results? What's one piece of advice that you would share with fellow leaders in the audience? Maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think the biggest lesson learned is understand the need as to why we need to deploy any technology, right? So we talk about the era of new technology. So irregardless, I think we need to understand why do we need to do that, right? And not chase after the shining stars, right? So understand what's the business value that it is actually going to bring to me. Is it going to be relevant to me? And how do I do it, right?
I like that. It goes back, Andrei, to your point of start with the problem first always, right?
Definitely work backwards from the problem and focus on practicality. I think it's so easy to fall into the pitfalls of AI magic wands and just kind of all kinds of shiny toys, but if you really keep the problem at the core and focus on what's practical, you can get the results. Like just start. That's the other thing, like over planning and just delaying things for months or years, because things will change. I mean, literally the space is changing by the day. So just start.
Get your feet wet, get out there. Yeah, I like it.
I'm probably having so many CIOs in the audience. Acknowledge that there is a real call to action for all of you, all of us. And we have multiple hats, but one additional hat that is lead and drive this opportunity, bringing the North Star, but at the same time, the practicality of the purpose of how we are going to be able to transform the organization at the scale. No? And have that dual wave operating at the same time is a responsibility that we can rely in others. So let's be very generous, very deductive, and try to drive the expectation while at the same time we are learning how to unlock the potential of an organization that is using this at the scale, which is something that everybody is trying to accomplish, but still a yearning for many of us.
Amazing. With that, would love to open it up to the audience. I see a hand up here. I don't know if we have a microphone potentially for the colleague in the front. It's coming.
Hi. This question is for Dimitris. He was talking about a really interesting, a difference in reaction from excitement in the business type folks, from anxieties to the back office people. How do you overcome the resistance in that specific subset of employee who's fearing the kind of the wave of replacement?
Not hiding anything, very pragmatic, very transparent, and socializing the pros and the threats, the opportunities and the unique, I will say, itineraries that each employee is able to write. It is true that for those that are in a back office or corporate task, not reinventing along the year, not having the right context in order to escape from the bureaucracy. Right now, to realize that the bureaucracy could be augmented by a cognitive piece that is really doing their activities better is a threat. It's create anxiety, it's creating something like that, but as we have commented previously in the previous panel about the IKEA mode, no? If you are identified that there are rooms and opportunities in order to reinvent your role, improve, raise the excellence, raise the threshold of what you admit that which is like the baseline, you are giving a new dimension of how you can repurpose your function. No? And that has worked really well. We have been working in discovery session in order to identify new opportunities for covering vectors, covering angles, reducing risk, so increasing the level of excellence in particular duties. No? Creating transversal opportunities where the activity of that corporate function probably could be connected with other roles that were not in the same type of alignment. No? If you work in treasury and you work in financial planning, but you have someone that is working in procurement, right now they can create working groups just to model new algorithms that before were managed in isolated way because they have no time. No? So to explore synergy and alliances across the organization in order to repurpose how they generate value. No? That has been very, very useful during this journey.
Thank you. I see another hand back there. Yep.
Yeah, the topic talks about strategies and transformations, and a lot of those start with a vision. A former colleague of mine runs a global robotics program for Amazon, and they started with a vision. The vision was, at first, the robots will help, in the distribution centers. Then they drew lines around the areas where robots operate. Now the lines are pushing people out, and we will ultimately have no people in distribution centers. But the skill requirements and the workforce is shifting from people carrying boxes around to people designing new systems, continuous improvement, maintenance, and things of that nature. So that robotics program, the vision is easy to describe. I wonder if you guys have examples, or if you have been able to present back to your organization, in so many years, with AI shifts. This is what our organization will actually look like. This is what the people will do. This is what AI will do. This is what the day in the life will look like.
I have plenty of examples where robotics and embodied AI in the last 3-4 years has revolutionized my domain. No? It's true that we don't have an industrial production line where all the boundaries are controlled, like in the OEM or in a logistic center. But right now, with the large vision models, with the small vision models, with the edge computing, running those models very close to the operation, and with the degrees of freedom of many of those robotic devices, we are literally changing the way we operate very high-risk activities. For example, all the control and monitoring of our transmission lines all over the world. We are using drones, synthetic data, analyzing on the edge all the potential failures, and sending triggers instead of having employees using cranes, using all legacy methods. No? The deployment of the solar panels across many of our solar farms. We are using robots in order to identify the position of each of the foundation, multiplying the productivity and having an autonomous activity. The drafting of all the plans over a floor in a building. We are doing that with robots that are taking the BIM model and reviewing that. The control monitoring of how we are evolving in activities like in JFK. We have 360 cameras scanning in real time and trying to identify the differences between the BIM model in 3 dimensions and the progress, and creating automatically the scheduling and the planning without human intervention, of with humans doing another type of activities, much more in add value, in planning redevelopment, identifying new activities. We are just seeing the early stage of the applicability of robotic at scale using AI in many industrial fields, but this is a revolution. We are seeing changes in the last 2 years that we never would have been able to imagine by far, no? And this is just the early stage. If we are able to train by ourselves and we are able to put in value all the data in order to have our own models optimized for those particular tasks, I think the revolution is going to be massive and impressive. And the shift in the workforce is going to change many companies and industries.
And I might have misunderstood the question a little bit, but if I got it correctly, you're wondering about how do you come up with that future exciting state that you work backwards from, right? And then in that context, what I personally, and how I push our customers on a regular basis, especially when they sort of like welcome this type of thinking, I like to do away with, like, for instance, let's say we're trying to solve a particular problem, because it does have to kind of work backwards from some sort of a problem, right? Like if you're an airline, you're going to focus on, how you can put more people into planes in a comfortable way, take them safely around the world, et cetera, et cetera. Or, if you're a retailer, you're going to think about how you can like sell more and, again, retain as many customers, repeat orders, blah, blah, blah. I like to, once the problem is defined, I like to not research solutions and effective for a while. Eventually you can go and look at them, but allow yourself, whether yourself or as an organization, to think and to dream. And it's a very tempting human thing to just immediately filter everything that comes through your mind through, well, that's not going to work because of this or that. It's like, but just bear with it for a second and allow yourself to think. And the beauty of where we're at today, and it's going to keep getting better and better, the state of the art and technology allows you to do so much. And most of the technologies that can enable phenomenal experiences, irrespective of what you apply them for, exist already, but you just have to piece them together creatively. And I'll just kind of wrap up this point with, I have an advisor. He basically ran and grew to a very large size, one of the top space exploration companies. And when I was talking to him a couple of years ago, I asked him, it's like, well, I get that you're an aerospace engineer, but how does one start a rocket company, right? Because it's a very complex thing. It's very easy to just look at something like that. It's like, oh shit, it has so many different components. It's difficult, challenging, etc. And his answer was like, well, given that it has that exploration component, a very important element of the rocket in this case is the capsule that goes up and then has to come back down safely with all the people intact. So we started there, and we started with its size, that it should fit 6 people. Why 6 people? 3 couples. That's it. And the rest, they just kind of built it. So I think it's so important that, you just kind of take a step back and allow yourself to just imagine a world where insert blank, and then back into, okay, well, how can we actually make this possible?
The one thing that I would add to this, I think it's a little bit implicit in what's already been said, is I would always, employ sort of a value back lens. You want to think about, yes, what's the problem, but also there's many problems, right? What's the biggest rocks, right, that you want to solve for your organization? What's going to deliver the most value to you, whether that's top line or bottom line, right? I would always employ that sort of value lens, but I really like the vision question. I love the points here. If I'm looking at the time, I know we're coming up, maybe one last question from the audience. I think I saw a hand up somewhere earlier, but no, I can't trace it. Was there one last question?
Everyone's hungry?
Yeah. Well, we are painfully aware that we are the last thing separating you from lunch, so we shall let you go. The one thing I just wanted to say as a wrap up here, one thing that I'm taking away from this conversation is it is all about the human. It's not just the human in the loop, but it's the human in the center, right? Whether that's creating the wins, whether that's creating the excitement, whether that's, the thinking of, think backwards from the problem, whether that's, driving the adoption, et cetera. It's always the human at the center, and if anything, empowered by the technology. Thank you all so much for this, and thank you, everyone, and enjoy lunch.